Okay, I'm going to go over a little video of today's lesson, and basically you are going to be getting ready for your summative. I know I've been saying that a lot, but that's where we're really going to get to it today. We're going to review the big lessons from the scientific method brain pop. If you haven't done that, you need to do it. You need to watch video, take the quizzes. We're going to review how to set up your germination experiment so it's fair. You're going to practice with a gizmo. You're going to assess. There's a quiz on the gizmo, and you've got to get an 80% before you can even start to plan, all right? Because this is a summative. You have to be ready for it before you get started. Okay, so the important thing with the summative is it's inquiring and designing. You're assessed on, can you ask a question and design a fair scientific test in order to answer it? If your plants die, you're not going to fail the summative. You are going to be taking records. You are going to be getting other grades on this project. But for this first summative, what's important is your design and your question. Okay, from Brain Pop. Just a quick little overview. Remember, the one thing that they changed on purpose was the amount of time they watered it, the watering schedule. Okay, so this was the independent variable. Everything else was the same. You've got to be like Tim and Moby with yours too. Everything else is going to be the same. And it was, of course, important to label container, and you label your containers because you might think you're going to remember which is which, but a good scientist always labels everything so they can keep track. Here's a proposal. If they wanted to see, they could have tested temperature instead, right? So if they were going to measure how temperature affected the growth of their plants, then they would have had to keep the water the same. Okay, and again, for Tim and Moby, they really should have taken actual measurements, like mass or height, and repeated trials, like more than one fig plant, and taking the data more than just at the very end. Okay, so your setup is going to look something like one of these. Okay, everybody's got to have at least 3 experimental setups. Okay, we're not going to use soil because we need to be able to see the roots. Okay, so everything's going to be identical in your setup except the one thing you have decided to change, and that is up to you. Okay, and that's called the independent variable. So in these 3 jars, they're all identical except for the one thing that this person decided to change. Okay, in this case, as an example, I chose salt in one. We're not going to put any salt at all. That's the control. In the next one, maybe a 1/4 teaspoon and 1/2 teaspoon. You can't just say a little bit of salt, a lot of salt. You actually have to use measurements. Here's another option. You can use 1 bean per container. In this one, you would have 3 beans in this one jar. In this, you could have 3 containers for each setup. Or you can do multiple as long as you are not changing more than 1 variable. See, we have 5 here, but it's still only changing the amount of salt. If you want to test more variables and you really have like a hankering to know more, go for it. But it's not the same experiment. Don't write it up. It's just going to get confusing. Okay, you just completely do that on your own. Okay, and I'll help you, but it's not going to be part of your grade. So you're going to need a ruler, meter stick, tape measure. You can print them out online. You should have a ruler, hopefully somewhere around your house. Something to measure liquid volume, even if it's just a spoon or a cup in your kitchen, and some kind of labels. And every day you have to write what you see, even if you write 9:21, no change. 9:22, nothing's happened. 9:23, you have to write your data every day. And once it starts to grow, start taking some measurements. Count the number of leaves, measure how long the roots are, do as many measurements and observations as you can. You can always have a backup plan. Practice growing different types of seeds. Make sure they'll even sprout, okay? You're allowed to do pre-experimentation. It's called making observations. But if you're going to make a change to your procedure, make sure that you also make the change in the report. Okay, so now you are ready